Hello mate, and welcome to this Let's Code 5.0 video. In this video we're going to add some new visuals to our coin toss game, and we're also going to add it to the main menu. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come into our script file here, and we're actually going to just delete the start label and define E and all that jazz because we don't need it anymore. And then we can save that. We can actually delete the script file if we want to. And we're going to come back into our minigame template, and where it says styles code, we're actually going to copy this block like so. And then I'm going to just paste another chunk underneath it. And this bit is going to say Ren'Py labels. And I'm going to style that correctly. There we go, Ren'Py labels, like so, so that we've actually got somewhere to put our Ren'Py code. Now you might notice that I've put a style in the wrong place, so we're going to just Control X that from there and stick that in there just to keep our dividers actually doing something. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say label coin toss start, and then we just put a return at the end of it like so. And then we can add a space in there. And all we're going to do in this label, excuse my frog in my throat, is we're going to call coin toss loop. Like so. Copy that. And we're going to just put a £sign or a $sign, depending on where you come from there. And then we press Control V in there. Coin toss start. So now I'm going to actually copy this bit of code, Control C. And we're going to go to the navigation menu file. If you remember in the first episode, we separated all of our screens out into individual files, and we're going to come across to here. And as you can see, we've got our navigation menu here, which is going to appear on our main menu screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new text button. If I can remember how to spell button. And we're going to go underscore, exclamation mark, and then inside here, we're just going to say coin toss. And action is going to be to call the label, which is coin toss start, which is the one that we just created. And in order to do that, our command is going to be capital S for start, open brackets, and then we're going to say label equals coin toss start inside there, and we'll just put that in strings like that, and then we'll save it so that we can have a look and see if it works. So as you can see, we now have an option on our main menu called coin toss, and if we click on it at the moment, there we go, it'll go into our coin toss game as it currently is. And so we have the ability now to call this straight from the start menu without using a start function, which means that we can actually remove the start function from our main menu because we don't need it. We also don't need save or load because we're not saving and loading games in the traditional sense. So there we go. So if we right click inside a game now, we have the ability to go to main menu. We have the ability to quit, and we have the ability to jump to coin toss game. Now what I would like to do is set it so that the only way that you can jump from one game to another is by returning to the main menu first. Otherwise things might get a bit weird. So what we will do is we will say if main underscore menu colon, add a tab in there, and then we can just say else in this one, and then put whatever code we want after that. So now we've got our coin toss. Our main menu only appears in the menu if we have a game loaded, and it won't allow us to jump from one game straight into another. We have to return to the main menu first. So there we're testing it out. As you can see, we've got the coin toss or quit option there. If we were to click on the coin toss game and then right click, it has got save, so we're going to sort the save screen out later, but as you can see in the menu, we only have main menu or quit as our options. And it will say, do you want to do this? You'll lose any unsaved progress. That's fine. Okay, so there we go. That's that kind of stuff sorted. So now we can go to looking at some of the visuals of our mini game to make it look a bit prettier and add some things that make it feel a little bit more like a game. So the first thing I want to do is where we have our heads or tails buttons, I actually want to change the text by adding y align 0.5 to each one, and I'm going to spell align correctly so that it actually works. And the same thing to the tails button. It has to go on the text, otherwise it won't do anything, because aligning the container at 0.5 in itself just will not make any difference. So we're going to Control S that and make that look good. Now, another thing that I'm not overly keen on is the fact that our frame has a background and our buttons don't. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to drop the opacity of our frame down even more, like that. And I'm going to add a background to our buttons. I'm actually going to add a size to both of them to make them the same size. So I'm going to say X size, and let's just say we're going to make it, the size of our frame is 250. So I'm going to make each button 125. So that they are the same size. So that just kind of adds a little bit more uniformity to our interface. So make sure we save every change we make as we make them. So because we've now added an X size, we actually need to change our align value. So we're going to just go to align there, and we're going to put align in brackets, and we actually want it to be 0.5 comma 0.5 in there. There we go. And then we can just copy this from there and replace our Y line in the previous thing with that, and then that's going to make that okay. Now, because we've got uniformly sized buttons, we no longer need to add a size limit to our frame, because it will look weird if we do that now, because what will happen is our buttons will appear bigger than the frame that they're in, and it'll just make it look really weird. So we'll get rid of that line, and then we're ready to check how it looks. Okay, so there we go. And if we just go into that now, that looks nice and uniform, doesn't it? We've got heads and tails like so, and it just makes it look a little bit more swanky. Now we can actually change, or rather we can put all of that information, all of those details into a style, because we're basically putting the same information into the buttons twice, so we're kind of repeating code over and over again. So let's just look into doing that now that we've got our style looking roughly the way we want it to. Okay, so we have a couple of options here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down into my styles text, and I'm going to go style, and we're going to go player guess button like so, and now we can add a background color. We can actually just copy or cut that out of there and pop it into there like that. That we no longer need to put those in there. We just have to declare that the style we want to use is going to be that way. Or we can use a style prefix. Either way, it's fairly simple. And then we can also create a style for player guess button text, and we can say align 0.5 comma 0.5, and we can also change the font or the color. Let's say we wanted to change the color so that it's slightly more standouty, so we can just say what color. Now we could use a hex color picker here, but I kind of like trying to guess them, to be honest. So red, green and blue, RGB. Green and blue I think are yellow, so let's go with 2, and let's go with CC, and then if our color's yellow it's fine, if it's not, never mind. And we can even put a font in here. If you use fonts, you can stick them in a fonts directory in your game and use those, and we might do that in a little while, but for now let's just focus on getting this bit done. Okay, so we can now remove that from there, and we can replace it with style, and then we can put player guess button text in there. Now you might be thinking, well, we've done is replace one bit of code with another bit of code, but yes we have in this instance. But what we've also done is given ourselves the ability of changing how the text looks in one place rather than having to type everything out twice. So it does make sense to do it this way, trust me. Okay, so we've got player guess button. So what we could do at the start of this is go to style underscore prefix. And we can put in our player guess as our style prefix. But to be honest, it's not that big of a deal to put it in the button instead. So we can just say player guess button like that. And now, to be honest, it's been a while since I've done it this way. So it may very well throw up a hissy fit if we try and do it this way, but we'll have a look and see if it works. And as you can see, and now that we're running it, we've got our button style is still correct and our text is now cyan. So I was a little bit out in my guessing of what the colors would be, but never mind, it stands out. That's the main thing. Okay. I'm also thinking that maybe we should put this frame a little bit further down the screen. Maybe another kind of 1/10 of the distance from the top of the screen perhaps might help. So if we look at our frame here, now you can see that again there are a couple of options that we've got here that we could do. So we could actually put a style in place for our player guess frame as well. Like that. And then we can copy these two elements and stick them in here instead. And then we can just say, copy that bit, pop that in there, and then just put some quotation marks around the name of the style. And now we can just change the items down here. Again, one of the benefits of doing it this way is that we can put all of our styles inside the styles code block, and then it's a little bit easier to find when we want to change something. So I'm thinking 0.5 is fine for the X across, but for the Y, I'm thinking if we go to 0.75 perhaps, and then that will make it look a little bit better. For the time being anyway. Now, one thing that you notice is that I'm using colors for the backgrounds of my frames, but you can actually use images if you want to. It's not the end of the world. So if you wanted to go the extra mile, you could literally just change what we put in the quotation marks here with the name of your image instead, including its location within the images directory, and you'll be golden basically. Which is something that we can investigate perhaps a bit further down the line in perhaps one of our more complicated mini games. But the next thing I want to do is I want to actually add a message on the screen that tells the player that the game is thinking as it's tossing the coin. Because basically what we've got at the moment is where everything happens instantaneously. It doesn't feel like anything's happening. It feels like you're clicking the button and then it's telling you whether you're right or not, which is exactly what's happening. But in terms of making the game feel like playable and like there's actually something happening, it's not particularly great. And you'll find that a lot of games do this intentionally, where they add delays to make it feel like something's happening in the background when it really isn't. Not necessarily loading screens, but still kind of delays. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new screen, and we'll call this coin underscore toss underscore message. And then we're going to take in two parameters here. So I want to say seconds and message. Okay, like so. Now inside this screen, because this screen is going to be displayed, we need to make sure that it's going to use coin toss player guess as well, so that it keeps that on the screen when this message is being displayed, so that the player doesn't just suddenly get presented with a blank screen with some words on it. So we're going to say use coin toss player guess. Coin toss player guess uses coin toss live, so that's fine. Now all we're going to do is we're going to say timer sec action. Action's got a capital A for some reason. Action, and then we're going to return false. like so. Okay, so now we have the ability to say how long we want the screen to stay for, and the message we're going to pass to another screen. Okay, and we're just doing this to keep things kind of compartmentalized, shall we say. So we're going to just quickly create a new screen, and we'll call this one coin toss thinking. And in this, we're going to take the parameter message. So now we can copy that bit and we can pop it into there. And we need to type in use at the start of it. Okay, for those of you who don't know screen language very well, what we're doing is when we want to display a message on the screen, we're going to say display this message for this amount of seconds, and we're going to call the screen. Okay, once we've done that, we're going to make sure that it continues to display whatever else we had on the screen. In this case will be the coin toss player guess screen, which already uses the coin toss player lives, so we don't need to re-specify that we want that to stay on the screen. Then it's going to call this screen called coin toss thinking, and it's going to pass the message that we passed into this screen into that one. We've also got a timer that's going to delay anything else that happens. So in other words, it will hold on to this time until it returns false back to our code. So now this code is going to be the message that's displayed. So first thing I want to do is put Z order like 200 in here to make sure that it appears above everything else that's on the screen. Okay, then we're going to add a frame, and we can just say background, and then we can add a color. Let's say, for example, I want this one to be quite dark, so we'll say #222, and also want it to be slightly transparent, so I'm going to give it an alpha of about 7. Okay, I also need to make sure that I set the position, so we can say align 0.5, it's got to be in the middle, and we're going to say in the Y align, let's just say 0.55. I don't want it to be smack bang in the middle of the screen, but close to it. Okay, then all we're going to do is we're going to put text message in there, and then we can add some styles to this a bit later on if we so choose, but that should pretty much be all we need it to do at the moment. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, at the start of while playing, we're actually going to call our screen and feed in a message so that it will actually pause the game, show our message, and then let the player continue when it's done. Okay, so now all we need is some Ren'Py code, sorry, Python code to actually do that stuff. So we have to create a new label, and I'm just going to go underneath this, and we're going to go define, and we'll call this one coin toss pause. And then in there we have to take our 2 parameters like so, and then we can say paused equals true, while paused equals renpy.call underscore screen, and then we're going to call our screen name, which we've just defined. So we'll just copy this here. Now remember, we have to put our screen name in a string in this case, and then we can say sec message there. So just to clarify what we're doing here, if we were to do this by screen, we'd end up with just the screen having a bit of a hissy fit. So what we need to do is be able to call this through Python code. So we've created a function whose entire reason for being is simply to put us into a while loop that will display our coin toss message screen until the screen returns the value false, at which point the loop will break and we'll return back to where we were. So now we have the ability to display a message on the screen. We can copy that into there, And we're going to say that. Now, I want the message to be displayed for about 3.0 seconds. And I want my message, in this case, to read tossing the coin. Okay. So that now when the game starts, it will say tossing the coin, 3-second delay before we can actually do anything else. And that should give us a bit of more of a feeling of that there's something actually happening. So let's give it a test and just see what's going on. We click on the coin toss button and it says tossing the coin, and then after 3 seconds the message disappears, which is exactly what we want. And none of the clicky buttons or anything are going to be active or usable during this time, because the screen that we're calling doesn't return what we want it to do. But we can double check. So let's just close that. No, we won't close it. Actually, we'll just jump back to our main menu. We'll say yes, please. Go to coin toss. And as you can see, if I click on either of the buttons, nothing currently happens, which means that it's allowing us to display that message on the screen. And then after it's gone, now our buttons, actually it was doing it. Okay, so that's good. So I'm glad we double checked that, because that's actually something that we need to debug. Having said that though, we could see that the lives weren't changing. So all that was happening is while the player was jabbing, or while I was jabbing away at the buttons, all it was doing was resetting our 3 seconds. So to be quite honest, I don't think that's the end of the world, because all we were doing was basically returning this, but because we're not actually returning a value that's doing anything, we will get no action essentially. So the guesses don't count while it's displaying this message. So we could actually just say please wait, and then we can add a new line in there so that it says please wait, tossing the coin. And then, you know, if the player is jabbing away at the button, it's on them if they keep doing it and the please wait message remains on the screen. We could, if we wanted to, add a slightly opaque frame across the entirety of the screen so that the player can't actually click on the buttons. So we can investigate that if you're feeling a little bit OCD about the player being able to do anything whilst it's happening. So we can have between the use coin toss player guess screen and our message, because we want our message to appear above everything else, we can say frame, and we can say position is going to be 0,0, and then size is going to be, we need to make sure that it says XY size, not just size. XY size can be the size of our screen, and then we can say background, and we're just going to make it so that it's 222, and then opacity, we don't want it to be particularly like bad, we just want it to be able to sort of darken the screen slightly. So we'll say background 2223, and then that should prevent the player from being able to click on the buttons. Having said that though, what we could also do is remove the frame properties and put them in a button like so. So we can create a button here, and we can do that, and then we can just give action null action like so, and then they definitely won't be able to click because we've got a button over the top of everything which prevents them from being able to do so. Sweet. So we just need to change our frames to say background none, and then when we run our code, if we were to keep jabbing the button, you can see that it didn't delay the functioning of that screen at all. So that's good. So we've got rid of the pause. Now what I would also like to do is add another message on the screen which says make your guess, so that the player knows when it's their turn to do an interaction. So I'm actually in my player guess screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use the message screen to display make your guess for a couple of seconds as well. Cool beans. or we can just have it so that we can put the text on the screen just above it. So let's just have a look and see where we can put that code and how we're going to implement it. I think the best thing that we can do is we can actually add a new value called default, and we're going to call it player. We have to call it coin underscore player underscore turn, and we just say false. Okay, and then what we will do is in our coin toss player guess screen, we will have another screen underneath it, which we will put here next to coin toss lives, and we'll just call this coin toss player go. And all we're going to do on this screen is we're going to have a frame. It's going to be we're going to give it a line 0.5 comma 0.4, and then we can adjust the position if we need to. Background we're going to give 2223 as well. Maybe I don't know, I'll go 2226 for this one because I want it to be slightly more visible. And then all we're going to do is we're going to put text that will say make your choice, I suppose. Something like that. Like so. And then we can have a timer that will last for, let's say, 3 seconds. And then the action is going to be to hide the this message, basically. So it'll stay on the screen for 3 seconds and then it will hide itself. So we need to actually make this a capital H because it's an action. And then we can just say coin toss player go. Cool. And all we have to do now is say if coin player turn, use coin player go, and then what we do is take this value here back to our game loop, which is up like so, and all we're going to do is set it to false before the message and then true after the message, and then we'll see how that looks. And thinking about it, we can actually get rid of that timer, to be completely honest, because we don't need it. It's just going to be in the way. So all it'll do is it's going to display our make your choice screen whenever it is our go, whenever it's the player's go. Otherwise it won't. So it won't show it when the message is displayed on the screen, and then once the message has gone, we should see make your choice should appear on the screen, fingers crossed. In fact, after a moment's reflection, what I think we can do is we can actually implement this slightly differently so that we don't need this coin player turn variable, because I feel like that's just making things more clunky than it needs to do. So here's what we're going to do. Where we currently call coin player guess, we're going to add a parameter to it, which is going to be player go. And we'll just say coin player go, just so that we don't confuse things more. So now when we call that screen, we have to say true or false. So we're going to say true in this case, yeah. And then where we call that from our pause screen, where we say using, so in this case we come down, we'll get rid of, actually no, we don't have to, we can actually just say if coin player go, then display coin toss player go screen. Now in the coin toss message screen, as you can see, we're calling this screen at the moment, so now we need to add a parameter, and we'll just say false, like that. So much easier. That should make life a lot easier, and it saves us having to create other variables, because we're just passing a parameter and we're saying if it's our go, then display coin toss player go, which is the message that we're saying that we want to put on the screen to tell the player to make their move. If it's not our go, like for example, when we're displaying the coin toss message on the screen, we simply say false, and then it won't display that piece of information there. So that should just make life a little bit simpler with regards to reading the code afterwards. Cool, so if we run our code, we just do a test run. So we get 3 seconds of please wait, tossing the coin, and then boom, as you can see, it now says make your choice. I'm going to move this a bit further down so that it appears in a more relevant place. Right above the buttons would be ideal. But as you can see, now we have that message is persistently displayed on the screen when it's our turn to move. And when we click on the buttons, it's not going to do anything until when the message is displayed, basically. So cool, we can get rid of that. Nice. Another thing that I would like to do is to enable us to be able to put that cover on the screen for a fixed period of time whilst not displaying a message. And that will enable us to have a little bit of a pause between the message saying we're tossing the coin and the player being able to move, so that they know that not to sit there jabbing the button in case they decide that that's what they want to do. So in coin toss message, currently we're saying use player toss player yes, screen false, that's fine. And then we're saying use coin toss thinking message, right? So what I want to do is I want to change that line to say if message is not equal to none. Capital N. If it's not none, then we will display the message on the screen. Otherwise, it's just going to put the cover on the screen. So that enables us now to come back up to our game loop, and where we've said coin toss pause blah blah blah, we can copy that, paste another line there. Right now I'm going to put a 0.3 second pause, and we're just going to delete that, and we're going to put in none there. So there's just the briefest of pauses. In fact, we could even change this to 2.7 so that the delay is no longer than 3 seconds when we start the game, so that now we get a little bit of just nothing on the screen, or no message on the screen, but still no interactive functionality, so that the player doesn't kind of get caught out when they're sat there jabbing the buttons. So now when we run our code, what we should be seeing is, yep, there we go. There is a slight delay between the message disappearing and our screen cover disappearing. Now you notice it says player lives 34. I must have accidentally put 4 up in the player lives option. And now what we want to do is just move this text down a little bit. And we can just close our file and come down to our screen. Yep, there you go. I've accidentally typed in a 4 there for some inexplicable reason. Now where it says our coin toss player go, I'm going to change the Y position of this down to 0.6, and then we can just test how that looks. Yeah, and as you can see, that looks much better. The make your choice text is closer to the buttons, so it's more indicative of where you need to make your choice, like that. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, all we're doing now is making tiny little tweaks and adding delays. This is like this is probably 50% of game user interface design, is putting these little delays and these little quality of life improvements. You have to kind of for the lowest common denominator. You have to plan your interface for those people who are just going to sit there jabbing the buttons, and who are just going to, they need to have everything explained to them to make sure that they don't do it wrong. And you also have to put in any code that you think might deal with anyone doing anything stupid or wrong. In this case, they've literally only got 2 buttons to hit. So all we need to do is control when they can hit them and make sure that that nothing can go wrong in that respect. So now we've got to our stage where we have managed to get our starting functions right. Now what we need to do is put in a message after they click heads or tails to tell them whether or not they got the answer correct. And if they did, then we can take the life away, and we'll tell them that we've taken the life away. And if they did, then we'll just add a life to it and we can tell them that we've added a life. So you creating that screen the way we have done now allows us to continually reuse it over and over again for different purposes like that. Cool. So now we come back up to our code, and currently what we're saying is if UI return equals toss coin, i.e. if they have guessed correct, then we call the coin toss correct function. If not, we call the coin toss wrong function, which we have up here. So what we can actually do is copy this code here, and we can put that into our coin toss correct code like this. And then we can just say, let's say we'll give this a 2-second delay, and we'll just say correct, new line, adding life like that. We could even put some color code in there if we wanted to. So I could use the old curly braces, and we can say color equals hashtag. Now we want it to be green, so we'll say 2F2 like that, so that displays that. Copy that down to here, and we're going to change our color to slightly reddish. Wrong. You lost life like that. And then I think I'm going to add another tiny little delay after this, just to make sure that, again, there's a separation between everything that happens. So in this case, we just delete all of that text code and put in none. And then we can just copy that and stick it down there like so. Cool beans. And now what we should see is if we get it right, it will present us with some green text saying correct, adding a life, and then a brief 0.2-second pause once that message disappears before we can do anything else. Cool. So what we've basically done is even if the player sits there jabbing the button over and over and over again, what we've done is we've limited the speed that they can actually do what they need to do to 5.2 seconds. That's the fastest that they will be able to get through, even if they sit there jabbing the buttons. Okay. So let's just test that. In fact, let's remove the color from our scenario right now until such a time as we need it, and we can actually add that as a kind of another parameter to our as like a KW argument, so that we don't have to add it. Cool. So yeah, let's do it that way. So what KW args are, for those of you who don't know, KW args are keyword. That's where the KW comes from, arguments. So we can actually create a situation where we can add, and it doesn't have to be called KW args. I'm just doing it so that we know what it is. But this is a way that we can add arguments to the end of our coin toss pause or not. And then what we can do is we can actually check if that is correct or not. So we can actually add in KW args here again. Like that. And then basically we'll just say if there is a keyword argument, we can set the color of our message to be whatever it wants to be. So we've added KW args or keyword args to this coin toss pause and to the statement where we call the screen. And what I've done in coin toss pause, where we actually call it for the very first message that comes onto the screen, just to test value, we've got please wait tossing a coin, and then we fed into it text color equals and then F33F, whatever color that may be. So now we need to come down to our screens. Okay. So because coin toss message is the screen that's initially called, we need to add our keyword arguments into that one. And then because that screen then calls another screen, we need to pass the keyword arguments on to that screen And then in coin toss thinking, we need to be able to receive keyword arguments like so. Okay, so we've passed the keyword argument all the way through to here. Now we need to do a check. So first thing we're going to do is say text color is going to be the color that we're going to display. And then up here we need to say if kwarg. So we're saying if there are any keyword arguments, then we will say text color. And now remember, we're in Ren'Py screen code now, so we need to use the dollar symbol, the dollar sign before any Pythonic commands. We're going to say equals kwargs.get and then text color in a string. So we're saying that the text color variable has been passed all the way through this little chain of events, and then we're saying if there is a keyword argument, then the text color that we want to use is going to be the one with the key, which is the variable name that we've given text color. So it will now put the variable value of text color into our actual text color variable that we've declared here. And then we're going to say else text color equals straight up white. Okay, so now we have the ability to declare color of the text that we want to use. So before we do anything else, we obviously need to test this. So here we are back in our game code running. If I hit coin toss, boom, there we go. We now have text in the color that we wanted it to be in, and we can now stylize our text, or rather give it the colors that we want it to have. So you might be thinking, well, that was a bit of a faff for very little return. Well, yeah, kind of, but it just means that we now have the ability to add things to the text, and we're reusing the same code over and over again, but we're now allowed to add additional style to our text. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put that red color up there with our wrong, and then all I need to do is swap that 3 and that F round to make that one green. So when we win, we get green text. When we lose, we get red text. Marvelous. Cool. Right, so what I would also like to do is make these messages central, aligned to 0.5, because the text is justified to the left at the moment. So let's come down to where our message applies on the screen, and what I'd like to do is actually align the text so that it's at 0.5 as well. So we're going to say X align 0.5 there. Cool. So let's see how our game looks now. So we hit the coin toss button. We get our white message saying, please wait, tossing the coin. Then it says, make your choice. We hit the button, wrong. You lost a life. Dang. Hit heads again. Couldn't do anything until it told us to make our choice. Lost another life. This could be over very quickly. Just doing that again. Try clicking it. Does nothing. Oh, we lost all of our lives in one hit, and then boom, game over, returns us back to the main menu. Okay, let's try it again, see if we can get a win so we can see how the win actually looks. There we go, correct, adding a life. Nice. Happy days. All right, so that's kind of good. That's where we want to be at the moment, and we can add, basically at this point in this, when it comes to screens and whatnot, you can add an image in the background if you want to. You could add a flashy animation. You can do any of those things that you want to do to make it look, but the basic core functionality, we're now at a point where it actually feels a bit more like the computer's actually doing something and taking its time, and it's prompting the player to do what they need to do when they need to do it, and we're getting swanky text on the screen. What we could do is add some transforms to our text so that it kind of fades in and fades out, but to be honest, for this kind of game, I think that probably does feel a bit like overkill. So in terms of the functionality of our coin toss game, that's that done. What we're going to look at in the next video is a persistent leaderboard so that we can actually save these scores to a screen and then view them from the main menu. Either way, thanks very much for watching that, guys. I hope you found it useful. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, alright? Bye-bye.